I'm Mike Gousha. The automakers are back with a different plan for a bailout. Will they get the money they need? I'll ask Congresswoman Gwen next on Upfront.
The fate of thousands of dealerships is tied to the auto industry. How are Wisconsin dealers faring? Could some be forced to close? The state budget deficit is pegged at $5.4 billion. Why this man says that number might not be what it seems. And is it a Christmas tree, a holiday tree, or something else? The answer this week on Upfront. Honest, candid, insightful. This is Upfront with Mike Gousha.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome to Upfront. We begin today with the B word, as in bailout, and the very high-stakes game of deal or no deal that's now being played out in Washington. In the coming days, Congress will have to decide whether to loan GM, Ford, and Chrysler billions of dollars to keep them afloat. The execs of the Big Three went back before Congress late last week. They told lawmakers that without the loan, a carmaker collapse could turn a recession into a depression. This time, the Big Three chiefs arrived in Washington in their own fuel-efficient hybrid vehicles, not fancy corporate jets. The plan has changed, but the message is the same. The heads of General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler are seeking a $34 billion lifeline.
I recognize that this is a significant amount of public money. However, we believe this is the least costly alternative.
The industry faces desperate times. Sales are plummeting, and the companies are running out of cash. GM says without a government loan, it could default. Auto industry suppliers, including Glendale-based Johnson Controls, say the ripple effect of a collapse would be devastating.
There will be an implosion of the supply base that will affect all of the car companies. This supply base has over 100,000 employees.
Congresswoman Gwen heard the automakers' pleas. The Milwaukee Democrat sits on the House Financial Services Committee, which held a hearing Friday on the automakers' new detailed plan. She joins us today. Congresswoman Moore, thanks very much for being with us today.
Thanks for inviting me.
Based on what you heard from the Big Three executives from the UAW, are you inclined to support some sort of rescue measure?
I can tell you, Mike, that I don't see any way that we're not going to help this industry survive. But I think we have to remember that this is a global industry. And the European Union, for example, is considering providing about $51 billion to their automakers. China, the other car industries around the world are looking at helping their industry. So if we don't help this industry, I think for sure we will lose upwards to $200 billion it will cost a couple $100 billion in Medicaid resources, unemployment compensation, and it will be catastrophic.
So it's an investment, but I'm sure you want conditions on that investment. What conditions would you have to have for it to be acceptable to you?
Absolutely, and I think that I join members of both the Democratic Party and Republican Party in wanting to make sure that this is indeed an investment instead of just a bailout, that in fact we have a senior position in terms of the loan that we provide to the Big Three, that there are no dividend payments or corporate CEO golden parachutes or anything in this deal. I think we also have seen the United Auto Workers make tremendous sacrifices prior to this event. But again, there are going to be tremendous sacrifices that they're going to have to continue to make.
What sort of difference do you think the news that came out Friday made in the chances of a bailout package being approved? And by that I mean, here you had unemployment data that shows 533,000 Americans out of work last month. Does that make a better case for a rescue plan for GM, Chrysler, and Ford? You know,
I think everybody is looking at some kind of package. I think the difference is that some people want to see the auto makers go into bankruptcy and follow the natural course of that and have the court supervised restructuring. Others want us to take out of the TARP funds, the $700 billion funds, and some want to just use the $25 billion that we've already committed to the industry and have them use those funds. I really think that there's a consensus developing that we should do something. I think that lawmakers are good stewards of taxpayers' money, and they just want to make sure we're not throwing good money after bad. We want to make sure that this industry can actually survive and that we're not just providing them with liquidity for the next 3 months or so.
You mentioned some of the options of where the money could come from. Do you have a preference? Would you prefer to see it come from the original $700 billion, or would you prefer to see most of it come from that $25 billion that was supposed to go for a fuel efficiency program?
Well, you know, it's hard to separate the development of fuel-efficient cars from the ultimate sustainability of this industry. So if we were to tap that $25 billion, it wouldn't involve us making additional appropriations, and I think that there can be a parallel kind of development. They can use that money immediately, but continue to move forward with putting online some of we saw today on display some of the hybrids, the new Chevy Volt, and some of what's possible. So I do think that it's possible to use that $25 billion and put them on that path.
Here's a question that I'm sure you get when I hear all the time. They say, when is the federal government going to stop giving money to companies that were either poorly managed or, in some cases, maybe even recklessly managed? When do we do that? When do we say, nope, we're drawing the line here, we can't give you any money?
Well, everybody would like to say that, Mike, but again, I can tell you that we're looking at a catastrophic event if we lose this particular industry. And again, it's not a bailout. It will be an investment. I think that the United States of America needs to be a leader in terms of clean technology. And here's our opportunity. This is an opportunity to lead that industry instead of just letting the industry fail and depending on foreign exports.
You said catastrophic. I mean, the automakers said in Washington that if one of us goes down, all of us could go down, and that we could turn a recession into a depression. Do you agree with that?
I absolutely agree with it, because if this industry fails, it's not just that the automakers will fail. The dealers, the suppliers, it'll be a domino effect rippling through our economy. And conservative estimates are that it will cost us at least $200 billion to just begin to address the human misery that will be the result of that.
So the bottom line for you here is it has to be done. That bankruptcy is not an option for this country.
And I'll tell you why it's not an option. You know, in a bankruptcy, you have the courts supervise it, and they can restructure the financial structure of the company. Here we're talking about restructuring the operations of an industry, having them go green. And that is so much harder to get your arms around. And as you mentioned, it's not just the automakers, but it's the franchises, the dealerships, the suppliers. And if they go into bankruptcy, who would buy a car from a bankrupt auto dealer? Because, you know, if you're buying a plane ticket, for example, you only have to worry about whether or not the plane is going to fly 6 days after you make your reservation. Will your ticket be good 6 days later? If you buy a car, you want to know that the muffler, if you have to replace your muffler in 6 years, that part will be available. And all those industries will dry up immediately.
10 seconds. How soon should this legislation be passed, in your opinion?
I can tell you that GM will be gone by the end of December if we don't do something.
So immediately.
Immediately.
The sooner the better. Congresswoman Gwen Moore, we appreciate your time. Thanks very much for being with us.
Thanks so much, Mike.
Good to see you
nice
again.
being here.
Well, we were talking about this. Auto dealerships are hanging on every word from Washington. Across the country, many dealerships are in danger of closing. We'll ask a spokesman about the health of Wisconsin dealerships. Coming up next on Upfront.
It's a great time to buy a car, if you can. Why you'll need cash, courage, or credit when Upfront continues. Upfront with Mike Gousha, brought to you by American Transmission Company. We'll be right back.